Hello and welcome everybody to Native Plants at Noon. I am your host, Cydney Ross, and I am so excited to bring you today's Native Plants at Noon episode. It's a very special program, Native Plants at Noon on the road, and we are taking you to Bluebell Valley, a super special spring ephemeral spot here in Kansas City. We had the delight of bringing field trip participants down to Bluebell Valley last Friday to check out this super special area, and we're excited to share that with you. But before we do, I just want to thank the Missouri Department of Conservation, our partner organization, who is helping us put on Native Plants at Noon. In addition to their support, we need support from sponsors like you to make Native Plants at Noon happen twice a month, so we can bring you awesome native plant tricks and tips and take you along to show you what's blooming. You can find more information on how to donate online at deeproots.org. We also have some upcoming events I want to share with you. We have a plant sale this Saturday on Earth Day out in Lee Summit at Metropolitan Community College, their Longview location, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I will include this information in the resources after our segment today. And then you can also join us on May 4th at 12 o'clock for our Lunch and Learn. Alix and I are delighted to be the art and natural resource residents with Johnson County Parks and Rec. And we'll be joining you live during that webinar to talk about art in parks across Kansas City and beyond. And one other thing before we jump into our delightful segment today, I wanted to just share with you, we have this beautiful annual report that just came out. So if you want to get yours in the mail, take a look at this beautiful imagery, lots of great information about soft landings, and special thanks to our Deep Roots donors here. So if you want to get yours, shoot us an email and we will mail one out to you. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to share our super special segment about Bluebell Valley. Thank you. So we have Native Plants at Noon. It's a monthly segment that we host with MDC, and we go around and talk about what's blooming in different areas, whether it's at the Discovery Center or different natural areas like Bluebell Valley. And today we're bringing a special group of people for a field trip. So they will be our live audience for Native Plants at Noon, and we're going to walk through the valley and see what's blooming and talk about the different species here and why they're so important to us here in Kansas City.
Bluebell Valley is a very unique spring ephemeral site in Kansas City. A lot of our spring ephemeral areas that would have normally been full of spring ephemerals are now choked out by bush honeysuckle and other invasive species around the city. So you just can't find any place like this almost anywhere else. The spring ephemerals in each site around Kansas City are very different. The makeup of all the species is very different. This is the only place in Kansas City that has this concentration of bluebells. So it's just awe-inspiring, and it just feels so good to be down here with all these blooming flowers.
For me personally, when I first came here back in 2021, I wept when I first saw the valley. You just don't see a place like this, not here in Kansas City, but not anywhere else really. It's just so expansive. It's such a special remnant woodland here, and it's really important for us to protect it and share it with people so they can experience it themselves. When we started working here, there was a honeysuckle all over the place, but it wasn't. You could still see, but now it's
on the perimeter. Yeah.
Yeah. So now
the efforts of like Pat bringing people down here, Larry, like everyone that brought people down here and just hand pulled honeysuckle. That's all the management that was being done until
yeah, until myself and the master naturalist with the Osage Trails chapter came and helped. So, yeah.
It has spread because of your work.
The bluebells will spread because of the effort.
We'll
I want you all to take a look up this hill, and actually we can keep walking this way if we'd like.
Can we show the pink one?
Right here.
Okay,
This
so
one right
these are
here.
bluebells, right? But every once in a while, look what happens.
We get some really interesting variations. We've seen pink, we've seen white, we've seen very pale, almost lilac colors. This is a natural variation. So when you're looking at cultivars, sometimes when they make a cultivar of a native, they're actually using the genetics from a natural variation, but this is not a cultivar, this is natural. And it's just really interesting to see that variation in the...
Yes, it's fun to see where the pink ones pop up every year.
You might think, well, okay, so what's the value of having these plants that bloom just for a few days? Well, there's life in the leaf litter. So hopefully you ditched the trend of doing fall yard work last year. If not, this year will be the year. But we have queen bumblebees who are emerging, who have already emerged. It's been very warm spring. They're some of the first pollinators, and along with our flies, are actually very important early spring pollinators.
If you look behind you, the sunlight is doing a nice thing where you can see how many tiny pollinators are going to each one of these flowers. And a lot of them are pollinators that no one really, you know, thinks about when they're thinking about like what is pollinating my plant, a butterfly or a bird, you know.
Right.
These are really important pollinators that only come up in the spring, and that's why a lot of our spring ephemerals are pointed down towards the ground. If you think about even the pawpaw trees, the blossoms are pointed down. Dutchman's breeches pointed down. What's another one that points? Oh, spring beauty.
Trout lilies.
Right, because
spring
all their
beauties.
Pollinators are coming up from the ground as opposed to from the air, like
later in the year.
Like later flowers that have their flowers pointed up.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? They're trying to attract the ground-dwelling things like you and me.
Yeah. Something else that's interesting about those spring ephemerals is a lot of them, it smells very nice out here, right? A lot of our spring blooming plants smell like rotten meat. Yeah, right here. Here's a pawpaw. You see the bell-shaped flowers that, again, point down? Right. And it smells like rotten meat.
Yeah,
it stinks, but it doesn't, you don't notice it as a human, but on a fly level, it smells great.
Rotten meat. So that we have a couple meat mimic flowers in Missouri, maybe more than that, but two of them that are here are the pawpaw and wild ginger is another meat mimic. So do you want to talk about some of the other spring ephemerals?
Sure. Well, let's go see some of them over here. We have pawpaws. Okay, so let's start with the understory. So those are going to be our shorter trees, right, that fill in this nice gap here. We have our Eastern Ohio buckeye. Did I say that common name right? So these will put on a beautiful cream-colored flower. Or there's some blooming. Oh, some of them are blooming. This is one of my, there's some, on this same tree, actually. I see it right there. Perfect. So, yeah, you can see this flower here. So again, notice the shape of the flower. They have evolved with our wildlife for thousands of years. They have a very intricate relationship. So anything that has tubular shaped flowers like the bluebells or the buckeyes require a pollinator with a long tongue to reach the nectar and pollinate as a result.
Bluebells are actually pretty common in the Ozarks. You see them in river valleys, like on the Big Piney River, and I've seen big colonies of them on the Current River. But to see this in Kansas City is really unique. And if you look on a map, a range map, we are just on the kind of northern edge of them. You don't see them north of the Missouri River or farther west. So this is kind of an outlier for a big spectacular colony of bluebells like this. And it's kind of funny, back in the old days it was kind of like a secret place because at the time there was really no good way to get here. As we came in on the really nice bicycle trail, that was a railroad, abandoned railroad right-of-way with a rickety old bridge with literally missing railroad ties that you had to hop and skip across to even get here, or if you were brave enough to ford the Little Blue River there. So because of that, we decided it's probably not a good idea to include that as a public place to visit just because of the limited access. But I think really in the back of our minds, we just didn't want to advertise it. It was such a special place and it was unique and cool. And, you know, it's the old conundrum of tell people about a really great place or, you know, kind of to protect it, not let the secret out. Anyway, the word is out now. And the really cool thing about it is now officially a part of the Kansas City Wildlands program. And I think it's because of it's relatively easy to get here now. Well, the new bike trail, they built a brand new bridge over the river. So that's basically made it possible to get here.
If you come over here, you can see a few different species that we'll be pointing out.
This is the fun of ephemerals, is that they go so fast and they go in a certain order. So every week that you come back, there's going to be a new set blooming.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
So we have a few different things right here. This foliage is probably my favorite of the spring ephemerals, next to bloodroot.
You know you're getting that tattoo.
I am getting that tattoo. This is Dutchman's breeches. They've mostly bloomed already, and they're further up that ravine. But you can identify it by that really feathery foliage. And they look like pantaloons. We actually have, I'm hoping we'll be able to find one to show you up here.
I can grab one.
That's foliage of the Dutchman's breeches, and this is cutleaf toothwort. You're welcome.
Another one you're seeing is phlox. That's this one, and you saw it blooming up on the trail.
Yeah, and there's some more over here. And then we've got our common violet. Oh,
yes.
And actually, this I just obliterated it myself. There's a
No,
yellow
here it is,
violet.
here it is.
Here.
No, this one's nicer.
Oh, okay, look at whichever's closer to you. This is Viola pubescens,
Yes.
which means fuzzy.
Yeah, fuzzy violet.
Fuzzy violet. It's a yellow violet. I love. Yes, they are.
We have a lot of native violets. I'm sure y'all knew that already, but some of them are really rare.
They are, and the common violet makes a fabulous ground cover. You have a new garden, you might be aware not let it crowd out your new little plants or plants that can't tolerate
Lots of pressure.
lots of pressure, yeah. But I love it. I never pull violets, I encourage them in my yard.
But these are jewelweed babies. Then you like jewelweed.
So you can see the little spots of white.
There's no columbine
Those
here.
are the,
no.
I just saw a tiger beetle. I can't believe I spotted that. You're welcome to come up here a little further if you'd like. Follow if you want. I just want to come up here and see if I can find a Dutchman's breeches as close as we can. I love my job. I have the best job in the world, arguably. Yeah. Well, I get to share my joy and passion about native plants with awesome people like you and some of the folks who will be on our field trip today. I get to spend my time outside and connect with nature. So I'd say those are all wins in my book. And then in my free time, I get to do fun things like help restore this area. I'm actually a Missouri Master Naturalist too, and I've spent a collective 90 hours here at the site with 2 other folks working on removing invasive honeysuckle. So I'd say my life, my work, my passions, they all kind of come together. I'd say I have the best jobs. So this area here, look up, notice how open, notice how empty. So this is the work we did this past fall. So notice there are some spring ephemerals making their way up, but not much. They're mayaples. Come here. They produce a little flower, a cream-colored flower on the underside of its leaves. Very cool. So we can also see the spring beauties are opening up right here. Here's a great example of one. Look how cute that is. Look at how beautiful that spring beauty is. Finally opening up, one of our harbingers of spring.
The variety of ephemerals down here is really, really diverse, and that's pretty unique. Yes, it's so special because nature is so healing, and it's so important, I think, for everyone to get out in nature, and especially living in the city. That's what I love about working at the Discovery Center, is that we've got a little piece of nature right there that you can get to really quickly in the city, and it's really peaceful, but you can't, there's just no substitution for this kind of area this close to the city. So the fact that this area is getting saved and conserved is really, really important because so much is getting destroyed all around us.
Excellent. So Deep Roots KC is all about encouraging people to take care of their native plant landscapes, whether it's gardens or across acres. And if they don't have a native plant landscape, we are here to help them get started. We are best known for webinars. Early when COVID hit, we were one of the first organizations to take our programming online. And in 2022, we had more than 8,000 people attend Deep Roots webinars. And those 8,000 people planted more than 120,000 native plants. So we have webinars to help people troubleshoot, to help people learn, to help people get excited about native plants. And then this year, we are starting garden tours and nature and woodland tours, because there's nothing quite like being out in the natural world to see where the plants live on their own, and then finding ways to invite them into our own outdoor spaces, whether it's an urban house or a suburban or even exurban acreage.
All right. Wow, that was incredible. Thank you for taking the time to join us at Bluebell Valley. And thank you for bearing with us with those few technical glitches. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Alix and Pat Whalen to join us on this call. Alix Daniel, as you know, is the Native Landscape Specialist at the Discovery Center here in Kansas City. And
Hello.
Pat Whalen, thank you for joining us. Pat is our naturalist, also located at the Discovery Center here in Kansas City. Hey, you two, how's it going?
Good. How's it going? Can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, awesome.
Wow, wasn't that a
video
fun
was so
trip?
beautiful. That's the first time I've seen the whole thing, and I almost cried at the end. It was so pretty.
Yeah, it was great.
It really was. We were very fortunate to have support from the Missouri Department of Conservation. They came out and filmed that field trip, and they did such a beautiful job. So thank you, Jim and Tom, for your efforts there. So we have some really great questions from our audience members. So before we dive in and answer those questions about Bluebell Valley, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about this place, because people are asking where it is, how they can find it. And before we let you know the directions, which we will include in our resources after this webinar. But first, I just want to talk about a few things. Leave no trace. This is such a special area, and it hasn't been very well known over the years. And we'll actually have Pat talk about his experience with Bluebell Valley, because he has some really great insight and personal connections with this space. But because it's been difficult to get to until they repaved that trail off the Rock Island Trail, which is where it's located. But now it's become more public. And some people have the belief that with an area becoming more public, there could be concern for damage of these landscapes. And I have the hope and the optimism that the more people who have eyes on this space, the more people who will care about it. And we're trusting you, our dear, dear viewers, to please do your part and make sure you leave no trace. Right before we had our field trip, I encountered a couple who were digging up bluebells. And not only is it illegal, completely illegal to harvest the entire plant from Jackson County Park property, it also is just, for me, it's unacceptable, because you are damaging the plants. And I'm not here to shame the people that I encountered. I had a really wonderful conversation with them about why it's important to keep these areas natural. But if one, it's easy to see a space like that. There's hundreds, thousands of these bluebells, and it might be easy to think, well, if I just take one for my yard, then that's not a problem. There's still more. But that's when everyone has that mindset, then what's left? So I encourage you all to visit this space, but I hope you'll stay on the trail. I hope you will protect this area. I hope you will also educate your friends and family that it's better to keep these plants out in the wild where they deserve to be, but also so we can all experience the beauty and the joy of discovering these places. So Alix, I'd love for you and Pat to kind of weigh in on your experiences and just any thoughts you have on Leave No Trace and just the history of Bluebell Valley.
Yeah, and so I wanted to maybe start with saying that the Bluebells are pretty much done for the year, right, Pat? The show is over for the year.
There's probably a few hanging around, but as far as the peak, probably happened about a week ago. We still have a few Bluebells hanging around here.
Yeah, we do, and we'll show you those for sure. But
There's other stuff.
There's other stuff, yeah.
So, but that brings up a very, very good point, Alix. If folks want to add these bluebells to their own backyards, we have wonderful native plant nurseries across town. City Roots, So Wild, Soil Service even sells native plants. And so I encourage you all to add native plants to your backyard, but do so responsibly. And also come visit us at our native plant giveaway. We have Go Native happening this weekend, and Alix and I have been growing native plants to give to you for free. So please do that rather than dig them up from the wild.
Yeah, that's what
and just to follow up on that story about the two people I encountered, I did walk with them and we had them replant them. So they did put them back in the ground. But not only does it damage these natural areas, it's also not a good idea to dig up a plant while it's blooming anyway, because the likelihood of it surviving transplant is pretty slim. So there's that.
Yeah. And we brought water to them to to re-water them in, so hopefully they'll survive. But yeah, and Pat, did you want to say anything else about Bluebell Valley? Did we pretty much cover it?
Well, Pat, I'd love,
okay, that video was wonderful. Yes.
Real quick, Pat, I would love for you to talk a little bit more of what was it like before it was paved? You know, can you talk about just your experience with it? Because compared to the three of us, you know this piece so well.
Yeah, it was really hard to get to. Literally, you had to swim across the river, the Little Blue. So think about where it's at. The Little Blue empties out of Longview Lake, and it's just south or north of I-470. So there was a couple ways that you could get in there, but both of them were pretty scary crossing that bridge. But now, again, it has great access and pretty easy to find.
Yeah. And I think I did see one comment in there, or someone asked how accessible the trail is. And so we always want to keep in mind that it's not good. It's never good to hike after rain, when it's muddy, when the trail is muddy. Never want to hike at that time. And the trail itself is not really a man-made trail. It's a walking and game trail. So it's pretty narrow, and there's a steep drop into it too. So keep that in mind for accessibility issues. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate trail.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask Pat, the bluebells are done for the year, right? But what should people be looking for now? Where should they go to see the next round of spring bloom?
What I would like to go see, one of my favorite blooming trees this time of year, is the flowering dogwood. And this week is Dogwood Week. Typically Earth Day, April 22nd is the peak. And I went down south a little bit last weekend to Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area, and the dogwoods were just starting, so they should be peaked out. Flowering dogwoods are not native to the Kansas City area. So pretty much every dogwood that you see in people's yards was probably planted. So you got to go about 100 miles, 120 miles south to the Ozark border to see wild dogwoods. So anywhere around Lake of the Ozarks, Coal Camp, Missouri, just south of Sedalia is where you'll start seeing the first dogwoods in the woods. So that's where I'd be heading this weekend.
And what's the dogwood? What's the dogwood? The state tree.
The state tree of Missouri.
That's right. That's right. So very important tree to us. But so Cydney, did you want to do more questions?
I do. We actually have a few. We have a few questions
Okay.
that I've marked from our viewers. Thanks for putting those in the Q&A. So Mary asked where the location of Bluebell Valley is. This one is off the Rock Island Trail, and we will include directions on how to get there in the email to follow up. So keep an eye
And I
out
wanted
for
to, sorry, can I mention really quickly that we, in the email also there, I think in the video I mentioned that there are a lot of really great places around Kansas City to see spring ephemerals, and that every site has kind of a different makeup, a unique makeup of different ephemerals based on different aspects of the site. And so we'll link to a few more spots that are much more accessible and also have a different variety of spring ephemerals.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to be linking to Casey Wildlands.
Yep.
And I don't feel like I've done enough justice shouting their praises, but I've been volunteering with them as a master naturalist to do this honeysuckle removal work. And I encourage you all to join me and volunteer your time to help protect this space. We do our honeysuckle removal at Bluebell Valley in the fall. So you can go to Casey Wildlands website, which I'll include in the resources too. And they also have a list of all of their wildlands. These are the natural areas that they are stewarding or caring for. And some of them have some really great spring ephemerals. I'm thinking of Og Prairie, I think is on that list. Same with, what's that park up in Excelsior Springs?
Isley
Woods.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that place is really
Yeah.
great.
They're famous for the blood roots.
Oh,
Yeah. And those
Yeah.
bloom just a bit earlier than
They're pretty
the
much
blue.
over with. Hidden Valley
Oh yeah.
Natural Area, Hidden Valley Park near Worlds of Fun. Be a great place
Yeah.
to go this weekend.
I love Hidden Valley. That's also a great place to find some fun mushrooms too to look at.
Very.
Okay,
No, there's no mushrooms there. None.
I'm talking about the russulas, the little cute ones.
Yeah.
Here's Chris Cardwell has a great question. Hey Chris, hey. Do the downward facing flowers also protect the blooms and pollen from spring frosts or snows?
Oh boy. Pat, do you know, can I talk about this? Do you know
Yeah,
anything
go for
about
it.
this? Okay.
I believe it, yeah.
That is such a good question. And I totally believe that. I'm going to go along with what Chris said. But we did learn something really interesting. I do know one thing that's kind of related to this. We did learn something interesting the other day about the a lot of native spring ephemerals have really like dark or splotchy kind of purplish leaves and tint to them. I'm thinking of the trout lilies, the water leaf. What are other ones that have splotchy leaves? Well, some of it anyway. That the dark pigmentation of those leaves is helps to keep the plant from experiencing frost. So those leaves stay out a little bit longer. So if you think about some of your more winter greeny type ground covers like penstemon, that's my favorite example. Penstemon has really dark purple leaves. So I guess those are frost tolerant leaves.
One thing I
Round leaf
learned
ground
too,
cover. Did you already say that?
What?
Did you say round leaf ground or round leaf?
Brown leaf groundsel, yeah. Yeah, that one
Cute.
too. It has purple undersides to the leaves, which is
So
pretty.
cute.
Yeah, well,
That's a
No,
great
I learned
question.
that especially the trout lilies have the ability to maximize the sun because they're only out for such a short period, and it's something in the chlorophyll that makes a lot of energy really fast. So they're kind of like supercharged,
yeah.
making energy from the sun with photosynthesis.
That
Think
makes
about
sense.
it, they're only going to be out for a couple of weeks at the most, so they got to maximize the sun in order to make enough energy so that they can bloom again next year.
That's right. And that reminds me of one thing too that I don't think Cydney you've mentioned yet, but that the if you're going to plant spring ephemerals in your native plant garden, make sure to plant something successional that'll bloom after that too, because keeping in mind that most of them will fade away.
Yeah, that actually is a great segue to Deborah's question. She's asking what ground cover will be there once the bluebells fade back.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stinging nettle that we've seen down there. We've seen some rye or brome, I mean, and
Jewelweed.
lots of jewelweed, probably poison ivy, catbrier. I've as I've been doing restoration work down there, I have noticed winter creeper. So we're, when you remove one invasive species, another one typically will try to bully its way in there. So keeping an eye out for that. And then I just wanted to comment real quick on some of that restoration work again, because we've got questions about that. So at Bluebell Valley, we ended up cutting and very carefully treating the trunks right after cutting. We didn't want to pull out the honeysuckle in this area because all of those spring ephemerals under the surface of the soil would be disturbed and destroyed if we ripped everything out by the roots. So initially in 2021, we were using Tordon. We were cutting and leaving like a few inches of stump, and then just very carefully on the outer ring here. Alex, I'm blanking on that word.
The cambium layers. The only
Cambium layer,
layer
thank
really
you.
need to get.
Yeah, so we don't, when you're stump treating anything, you don't need to cover that whole surface that you've cut. You just need to do that outer layer. And so we did notice, though, the Tordon was affecting the pawpaws the next year. So we, regrouped and reconsidered and sought out advice from Casey Wildlands and other experts. And they suggested that we switch to glyphosate because it becomes inactive once it hits the soil and it doesn't travel through the root systems as much as Tordon does. And we did notice less of an impact this spring on the pawpaw populations. So it's been an interesting thing, but as you all know, dealing with invasive species requires constant vigilance and management and diligence. I don't know, it requires a lot of things. So that is something to think about. But also these spring ephemerals, they're the first ones to leave when things like invasive honeysuckle show up. So I don't know, Alex, Pat, if you want to talk about that a little bit, but.
Yeah, so Pat kind of talked about why Bluebell Valley isn't so affected by honeysuckle. I think one of the main reasons, aside from people just going down there and pulling it, and then y'all's work, is that it's kind of in the center of like how honeysuckle gets established is that it takes advantage of the disturbed edge of a woodland. And so when you see it take over a whole area, it's because it crept in from each side of that woodland. And I don't know, what do you think? Is Bluebell Valley just like
Yeah,
too far in?
honeysuckle, when you have a high quality natural area, it's hard for the honeysuckle to get a foothold in there.
Yeah.
And I got this question a lot last week when we were on the hike, like how did these bluebells get here and why are they so special? I really believe probably 100 years ago or whenever that whole little blue river valley was filled with bluebells.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing now is really just the remnant of what's left. If you think about the same thing that happened to the prairie in Missouri, there's less than 1% of the original prairie. So I think probably honeysuckle got into that whole valley and just overtook it. And literally the bluebells are it's the last stand of bluebells. And because that area was high quality and is somewhat protected on that north slope, I think that's why those bluebells were able to survive.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
yeah.
did you have any more questions, or do you want to look at
Yeah.
a
Look
few
at some
different
flowers.
flowers?
Well, we've got a lot more questions, but how about this? How about let's take a pause in these questions. Would you guys show us what's blooming over there at the Discovery Center today? I was there this morning looking at it and it looked very cute.
Okay, and then I'll let Pat go and we can answer more questions. How about that? Okay, so Pat, what do we got here? What do you want to look at
Let's
first?
start with some bluebells.
Okay, here we go.
Bluebells are kind of the star of the show today.
That's right.
Yeah, they're
See
still
it.
hanging around. They're really intense.
Hold
Nice
on, let me
outfit.
get this camera work. Oh boy, Alex is in charge of the camera today. Oh boy, here we go. Okay. Can you see those?
How about those pink ones?
Yeah, it looks great.
So yeah, they're kind of at the end of their bloom, huh? You can see the little, the flower bits are exposed, especially after that storm last night. We lost a lot of our petaled ferns. Here's a pink one. That's nice. Okay. What else do we have?
Look at some wild ginger.
Okay. Can you tell us about wild ginger? See if I can get down
please
here.
do. While you are telling us about some of these plants, I'm gonna go into the Q&A and answer some of these questions that we may not get to live. So
Okay.
talk away.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, I'm just gonna lose. There we go. So this is, yeah, the wild ginger.
It's one of those brown flowers that attracts ants and flies, right?
That's right.
Pollinators.
Yeah, it attracts ants, flies, all these things that like the smell of some rotten meat, like we saw in the video. Can we show the next meat mimic flower that we have?
See a wake robin right over here.
Yeah,
Or a
you
trillium.
call them wake robins, right? That's one of the common names. Here's that one, and
Trillium. It has 3 leaves.
yeah, and it has 3 well, they're fake petals, but there's that one. And Pat, do we have more than one trillium, or these are the native trilliums, the red ones?
There's white trilliums, more of an Ozark species, but this is the one that's true to Kansas City.
Yeah, and you can find a lot of these in Swope Park. That's another great place.
Yeah, I don't see them around a lot, but
Yeah. Okay, and then should we
other
look at our
brown
other
flower.
pawpaw? Yeah, what's our other brown flower? Oh, and I wanted to mention most of these. So we're at the Discovery Center here. So we're under the big, deepish shade of our pin oak tree here. So this is our deep woodland shade garden. And here's one of our lovely pointing downward flowers. Whoops, here we go. So that's our pawpaw tree.
there's some leaves right there.
Yeah, starting to leaf out. And that's another one that's meat mimic. And a cool thing that I don't know if it's cool, but one of the things I heard that people, to get pawpaws pollinated, is they hang like chicken parts in their pawpaw trees to attract more flies to pollinate. We have a few fruiting pawpaws here at the Discovery Center, but we rarely make it to the fruit before the little animals do. But
Yeah,
pawpaws are,
squirrels get them.
yeah, but pawpaws are really common in Kansas City near our rivers. And so then we've got, what else? Sid, did you have a question? You want to look at Pacra? Did people want to see Pacra?
Oh, please show them Pacra. Pacra
Okay,
is one of my favorite native
This
plants.
is Pac. This
Look
is
how
Pacra.
cute it
Oh, let me hold
is.
still.
Yes, stay still. That's beautiful. And that blooms at the same time as wild sweet William, which is a great combination with this plant. So
Yes.
Pacra is a good ground cover species. You can tell it fills out spaces.
Yeah, here's the leaves. I
Find
feel like
the
we talk
purple
about
one.
this plant every day. That may be
Every
excessive,
day.
but,
It's the real
um,
MVP.
it's one of our favorites. These aren't very purple. I don't
They
know what's up
aren't.
with these. Sometimes they're more purple. And there are a couple different species of Pacra. And there's one that enjoys a little bit more sunshine. And this one I think is the woodland species, which has it's just a little bit smaller. Maybe the sun one is a little bit more purple on the bottom.
Yeah, these might be a good, John Smith asked if there are any good ground cover natives that take the occasional human foot traffic. I'd say these could definitely handle that. Even native violets.
Yes, native violets for sure. What's another good one that we like? Well, pussy toes sort of, that can handle a little bit. And then what's the other one that Susan has at her?
Oh, the Robbins plantain. That's such a great one too.
Can it handle a little foot traffic? That's more of a full sun species though.
Yeah,
right?
it is. Okay, so
okay.
that about
Wild
answers.
Sweet William right there. Sorry, I just saw it. I thought there was one in here, but it's not really bloomed yet. So I think is that all the plants that we wanted? We wanted to look at celandine poppy too. Are you interested in seeing that one?
Yes, please. Let's go to celandine poppy and then
celandine poppy.
And just so the viewers know, I have added the names of the
species.
Okay, hold on.
It's pretty rare as wild.
I have added the names of the native plants in the chat for everybody, so you can see the common and Latin names. And yeah, oh, thank you, Cynthia, for your feedback. She says her Robin's plantain does do well. It does okay in part shade. That's good to know. Oh, look at that celandine poppy. So pretty. The foliage on this is outstanding too. Yeah, check that out. I love good foliage. I feel like folks sometimes forget that foliage adds such great texture and shapes to the garden. It ain't just all about them blooms. That's all I'm saying. Okay, everyone. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up this episode of Native Plants at Noon. Thank you, Alix and Pat, for joining us today. And for the rest of you, thank you for your support. Thank you for continuing to be good stewards of the land. And until next time, we will see you soon.